Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to getting informed, giving you the facts, maybe a few surprises, and hopefully keeping you hooked along the way. Today we are getting into Ben Carpenter's Everything Fat Loss. It's a book that really aims to, cut through all the noise in the diet world. Our goal here is to move beyond that really rigid one-size-fits-all advice you always hear about weight loss. We want to give you the facts, the science, so you can make choices that are right for you, choices that actually support your health, your well-being. And just a heads up, some things you might believe about fat loss. They might get challenged today. We might even end up questioning if weight loss itself is always the right goal. Okay, so let's unpack this, because the author kicks things off by going after what he calls the crazy advice that's just everywhere in the diet industry. He has this really interesting theory about where a lot of the really bad advice comes from. He points to super hardcore fitness culture.
Exactly. And it's fascinating how he traces it back. He talks about those, glossy magazines.
Yeah. Right, with the half-naked shredded fitness model.
Yeah. And how that look, that ideal, sort of trickled down into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And it led to these insanely restrictive dietary plans, like the classic advice to eat obscene quantities of chicken and broccoli every day. His whole aim, really, is to give unbiased, science-backed info. And maybe the most surprising thing he puts out there is this idea that not everyone should strive to lose weight, which really pushes back against weight loss being this cure-all solution.
Yeah.
He points out, quite rightly, the possible side effects of dieting. Like potentially messing up your relationship with food, or maybe missing out on social stuff because your diet rules are just too strict.
That's such a key point. It fights that simple idea that it's all just willpower, doesn't it? He uses a great analogy comparing it to climbing the career ladder.
Right. He says, someone might get ahead faster, not just because they wanted it more, but maybe they inherited a more fortunate starting position.
Better education, maybe connections.
Exactly. And it's similar with weight. Some people just find managing it easier, maybe because of genetics or things from early life. It doesn't mean they have more willpower. It kind of shifts the focus from blaming the individual to looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, and that brings in the whole societal pressure thing. I mean, we often forget how much our views are shaped by culture. He says what you personally view as better or worse is shaped by the culture in which you live. And ideals change, right? Like historically, more body fat was sometimes seen as a sign of wealth.
Totally. It shows how arbitrary some standards are. And there's a geographical component, too. If you grew up with Western media, your ideas about bodies are probably different than somewhere else. Like, studies show Western media pushes thinner bodies for women. And for men, too, remember that study, 90% of American men wanted to be more muscular versus, 49% of Ghanaian men.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is. And when you're constantly seeing these, airbrushed photos, filtered images, it's easy to feel inadequate by comparison. And what's really concerning is that feeling bad, feeling shamed about weight, it can actually stop people exercising. It makes it harder to be active later on.
So it backfires.
Completely. The research is clear. Weight stigma is directly harmful.
Yeah.
It makes people avoid exercise and, get this, sometimes eat more. He tells this really sad story about a kid who was shamed and ended up secret binge eating.
Oh, that's tough. Okay, so we've tackled some myths, some societal stuff. Let's get to the core science. He brings it back to calories in versus calories out. But does he explain why that simple idea is so hard in real life?
Oh, absolutely. He says eat less, move more is technically correct, sure, but it's often like telling a drowning person to drown less and swim more.
Right, not very helpful.
Exactly. It ignores how complex it is. So calories, just to be clear, are just units of energy. Kilocalories, or nacals, that's what you see on labels. And metabolism. That's basically the complete set of chemical reactions to maintain life. Everything your body does, your TDE, total daily energy expenditure, is all the calories you burn in a day. A big chunk of that, usually around 60%, is your REE, resting energy expenditure. To keeping the lights on, basically.
Okay.
And here's a key thing. As you lose weight, your REE actually goes down, too. Your body becomes more efficient.
Ah, so your metabolism slows down a bit?
Yeah, which can slow down weight loss over time. It's physiology, not a failure of effort.
Got it. And looking at the calories inside, he breaks down the macronutrients: protein, carbs, fat. How do they fit into this?
Right. So protein and carbs, they both have about 4 calories per gram. Fat is more dense, 9 calories per gram. But here's something really interesting. The thermic effect of food, or TEEF, think of it like an energy tax for digestion. Yeah. And protein has the highest tax. Your body burns a decent chunk of protein's calories, just processing it way more than for carbs or fats. Around 20–30% for protein versus maybe 5–10% for carbs, and hardly any for fat, like 0–3%.
So high-protein diets have a built-in advantage.
Pretty much, it gives them a weight loss advantage metabolically. Then you have micronutrients, vitamins, minerals. Their direct role in body composition isn't as clear-cut, but getting enough is vital, especially if you're eating less overall.
Because you might miss out.
Exactly. He mentions studies finding consistent micronutrient deficiencies in popular diet plans. It's a good reminder that health and weight loss do not always go hand in hand.
Right. Okay, this next part I found really fascinating because it shows it's not just about, wanting it more. He shares this personal story about moving from a rural area, not many food choices, to a busier place.
Oh yeah, the environment shift.
Exactly. Same guy, same basic level of willpower, he says. But suddenly, his activity dropped, and he was ordering takeaways constantly. Different environment, different results.
It perfectly illustrates the power of our food environment. Things like how available food is, how close it is. It changes how we eat. Like that study with M&Ms, just moving the bowl from 70 centimeters away to 20 centimeters made people eat way more.
Wow.
And there's the cafeteria diet idea. More variety naturally makes us eat more. Even applies to rodents. Plus, sensory-specific satiety. That's why you can be stuffed after the main course.
But still have room for dessert?
Exactly. You're full of savory, but not sweet. He also mentions a study where giving sandwiches with 4 different fillings versus just one made people eat about a third more. Variety drives consumption.
It's amazing how much portion sizes mess with us subconsciously, too. The research is so clear. Bigger portions mean we eat more. That study with the sandwiches giving guys a 12-inch instead of 6-inch, they ate 56% more calories, females 31% more. And get this, they didn't feel any fuller.
That's portion distortion right there. It's everywhere.
And it adds up. That longer study where they gave people huge lunches for 6 months, they just kept eating more, gained weight, didn't compensate later.
Reinforces that clean your plate habit many of us have.
Totally. Simple things like using a measuring spoon for rice can actually help fight that autopilot eating.
And it's not just the food environment, it's the activity environment too. Think about it. More cars, escalators, desk jobs.
Less physical effort needed day to day.
Right. And leisure time. More screens, TV, streaming, phones. Less active play. He cites stats like kids walking or cycling to school dropping dramatically. And more screen time correlating with higher weight. These habits start young.
And that links back to the psychological side, the weight discrimination point you made earlier.
Yes, it's crucial. Feeling ashamed about weight doesn't motivate, it deters exercise. It makes it harder to be active. The stigma is directly harmful. People avoid gyms, avoid movement, and sometimes, paradoxically, eat more. That story about the child secretly binge eating because of shame. It's heartbreaking, but highlights the real-world impact.
And then you add emotional eating on top of that. Stress, boredom, sadness.
Even happiness.
Right. They can all impact food intake, often leading to overeating. As he says, psychology is a complicated little bugger.
Okay, so we understand the science, the environment, the psychology. Now let's talk strategy. The big question for you listening is probably, okay, so what diet will actually work for me?
Well, first principle, energy balance cannot be bypassed. For fat loss, quantity calories matters most. However, quality isn't irrelevant. Ultra-processed foods. They tend to be less nutritious, worse for appetite regulation, and are easier to overeat.
Easier to overeat, yeah.
There was that study comparing a whole food sandwich to a processed food, one same calories roughly. The processed sandwich resulted in 50% less energy burned after eating.
50%? Why?
Likely lower fiber, lower protein. It suggests processed foods might be more fattening calorie for calorie because of how our bodies handle them. Quality matters. Think about energy density, too. Adding butter to potatoes adds calories without making you feel much fuller. But the flip side is hiding vegetables in meals increases volume, lowers calories, helps you feel full.
And then there's the importance of protein. We touched on the thermic effect, but it's also crucial for keeping lean muscle mass when losing weight, and it's very satiating.
Helps you feel fuller for longer.
Exactly. Studies consistently show higher protein diets lead to better results, more fat loss, more muscle kept or gained. Aiming for something like 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily is often a good target.
Okay, so protein is key. What about the whole low-fat versus low-carb thing? They're often presented as opposites, right?
Yeah, they're often inversely related. Cut fat, you tend to eat more carbs, and vice versa. He points out that going low-fat can sometimes cut calories just because you naturally eliminate a lot of those super delicious ultra-processed foods, which are high in fat.
like pastries, fried foods.
Right. And low carb. That term itself is fuzzy. It can mean anything from super strict keto to just, cutting back a bit.
Oh, well.
So is one definitively better?
What does the author say?
He suggests the best approach isn't strictly one or the other, but finding what you can stick to, which leads us nicely into if it fits your macros, IFYM, and flexible dieting.
Ah, yes, IFYM.
This was kind of a reaction against that super rigid, hardcore fitness culture diet. Plain fish and veggies 6 times a day.
Sounds pretty miserable.
It often is. And those really strict all-or-nothing rules, they can actually cause unnecessary food paranoia and disordered eating, and often lead to that yo-yo dieting cycle. Research actually backs up flexible dieting. It's linked to less overeating, lower depression and anxiety, lower body weights long-term.
Because it's sustainable?
Precisely. Consistency over perfection. He even suggests something like modified intuitive eating when you're not actively dieting.
Okay, flexible sounds good, but what about meal timing? That old idea of eating small meals all day to stoke the metabolic fire, is there anything to that?
He tackles that head on. Yes, some older observational studies showed links between eating more often and lower obesity risk. But correlation isn't causation, right? When you look at controlled trials, specifically testing meal frequency, they find minimal to zero difference in weight loss or body composition.
Really? Zero difference.
Pretty much. Some studies suggest maybe 3 meals a day is better for appetite control than grazing constantly, but overall, he concludes there's little robust evidence to aim for a specific number of meals for fat loss. Do what suits your hunger and schedule.
That's liberating. Okay, what about intermittent fasting then? Things like alternate day fasting, 5.2, time-restricted feeding. The idea is you eat less overall without counting, right?
Exactly. That's the mechanism. It's just another way to achieve calorie restriction. But when you compare it directly to standard daily calorie cutting in research, if it is not inherently superior for losing weight or keeping it off.
No magic bullet there either.
Nope. Sometimes it even leads to more muscle loss or side effects like dizziness or mood swings. And there are valid concerns it could trigger eating disorder symptoms in people who are vulnerable. His takeaway is pretty clear. Fasting is just a different vehicle that ultimately takes you to the same destination. Calorie restriction. Another tool, not the tool.
Gotcha. Okay, let's wade into some controversial waters now. First up, sugar. What's the truth behind the hype?
He argues it's not inherently bad, it's about the dose. There's a dose-response relationship, and context matters. Fructose in an apple comes with fiber and water. That's very different from excessive intakes of, say, high fructose corn syrup and soda.
So it's about excess calories from sugar.
Primarily, yes. Sugar contributes to weight gain when consumed as an excess source of calories. Right. And crucially, it's often combined with fat in those ultra-processed foods. Think candy bars, pastries, which makes them incredibly easy to overeat. It's the combo that's often the real issue.
Makes sense.
And he specifically calls out sugary drinks. Why? Because of weak dietary compensation. Your body doesn't register those liquid calories the same way as solid food.
So you just drink them on top of everything else?
Pretty much. Their calories are more likely to be purely additional. Cutting those out can be a really effective first step for many people.
Okay, good tip. Now, alcohol. The author talks about his own past all-or-nothing approach, but then he quotes a client saying, essentially, I can't live like a monk like you do.
Yeah, that quote really highlights the realism needed. Alcohol is tricky. It definitely impacts appetite.
You're still hungry?
Yep.
Yeah.
You feel increasingly hungry, even though alcohol itself has calories. Studies show people eat more after drinking, like that one showing 25% higher calorie intake with wine before a meal. It can also hurt training performance and potentially muscle growth, especially for guys drinking higher amounts.
But what about moderate amounts?
The research suggests low doses probably have no significant effects on muscle growth or fat loss. But, and this is crucial, he stresses that body composition is just one aspect. Overall health is a separate and much wider topic. Alcohol's impacts there is a whole other conversation.
Understood. Okay, last in the section. Cheat meals, refeeds, and diet breaks. He really dislikes the term cheat meal, right?
He really does. Says it overlaps dangerously closely with binge eating, implies guilt, and should burn in a fire. Strong words.
So what's the alternative view?
He talks about refeeds plans, strategic increases in carbs, maybe up to maintenance calories or slightly above. The hope is often that this will spike metabolism or fix hormones like leptin. But the reality, while leptin does increase with overfeeding, the effect is very short-lived. Any metabolic boost is tiny and temporary.
So it doesn't really reset anything long term.
Not significantly, no. Needing significant overfeeding for a modest increase in the number of calories burned probably isn't worth it from a purely physiological standpoint.
But maybe psychologically.
That seems more likely. Things like nonlinear dieting, maybe eating a bit more on weekends, can really help with sticking to the plan long term. It improves adherence. So the research on the metabolic benefits of refeeds is pretty inconclusive. It really comes down to personal preference, trial and error, and what helps you stay consistent without feeling totally deprived.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about tracking. How can keeping track keep you on track? The classic question, how often should I weigh myself? Advice is all over the place, weekly, daily, never. And we know weight fluctuates like crazy day to day, water, food, hormones.
Totally. But despite those fluctuations, some research does show that daily weighing can help prevent weight gain. Like in that study with college freshmen, it prompts small adjustments. And using self-monitoring apps, especially those with feedback, seems to be linked with better weight loss results.
But there are downsides, right?
Yeah.
Psychological ones.
Definitely. There are psychological risks. Weighing can increase body dissatisfaction, make you overly critical. And he makes a really important point. You don't actually need to weigh yourself ever to build healthy habits. Focusing on behaviors eating well, moving more can be enough. You have to decide if the scale helps or harms your mindset.
That's a really balanced view. What about food tracking? Just writing down what you eat, even on paper, increases awareness, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And interestingly, studies comparing super detailed tracking versus simpler methods found no significant weight loss differences.
So consistency beats perfection again.
Seems like it. Just being aware is powerful. And yes, smartphone apps generally lead to better adherence than pen and paper these days. But
Yeah.
we have to talk about calorie underreporting. It's incredibly common. People consistently underestimate what they eat and overestimate how much they exercise.
Unintentionally sometimes.
Often, unintentionally, that splash of cream, a handful of nuts. But sometimes intentionally, too, maybe fear of judgment, wanting to seem like you're trying harder. He says underreporting is widespread, approaching universal.
So the numbers aren't always accurate anyway.
Often not. And again, the psychological side. For some people, rigid tracking can cause distress or worsen existing disordered eating patterns. It's about being aware of the pros and the cons and choosing tools wisely.
Right. Okay, moving beyond diet and tracking now, let's look at some other crucial lifestyle levers. Sleep, for instance.
Hugely important and often overlooked. Not getting enough sleep really messes with appetite hormones. Leptin, the fullness hormone, goes down. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, goes up.
So you literally feel hungrier.
Yes. Plus, being awake longer just gives you greater opportunity to eat. And get this, one study put people in a calorie deficit. The group that slept less lost less fat and more lean body mass compared to the group that got enough sleep.
Wow, so sleep impacts what you lose, not just how much.
Exactly. The book gives good sleep optimization tips. Dark, quiet, cool room, consistent schedule, get sunlight in the morning, avoid screens before bed, relaxation techniques.
Critical stuff.
Yeah, though he acknowledges getting enough sleep isn't always easy or possible for everyone, it's a luxury for some. But the impact is undeniable if you can prioritize it.
Okay. What about water intake? It seems so basic, but the weight loss industry manages to turn water into a possible weight loss tool. Is there any truth to that?
Well, hydration is obviously essential. But specifically for weight loss, there's some evidence for a preload effect. Drinking about 500 milliliters, say half a liter, of water 30 minutes before a meal seems to help people eat slightly less, particularly older adults.
Just from feeling fuller.
Presumably. One study found doing just that led to an additional 2 kilograms, about 4.4 pounds of weight loss over 12 weeks, compared to the group that didn't preload with water.
Simple, but potentially effective.
Yeah, so stay hydrated. It might give you a small edge, but don't expect miracles from water alone.
Got it. Lastly, eating rate and mindless eating. We know faster eaters tend to weigh more. What can we do about that?
Research shows consciously slowing down, maybe chewing more, using smaller forks, pausing between bites can actually reduce how much you eat in a meal and even affect hunger later on. And then there's mindless eating, eating while distracted, especially watching TV. Studies show people eat significantly more, like 11% to over 70% more when distracted.
70%.
Yeah, it's wild. Even the ads on TV can influence what and how much you eat. But, he reassures us this is research stuff. Eating socially, enjoying the meal with others, that's not inherently bad. It's about bringing a bit more awareness to how you eat when you're eating alone or distracted.
Okay, so bringing it all together. We're facing this big conundrum, aren't we? Our modern world, easy access to high-calorie processed food, less need for physical activity is just more conducive to gaining weight than ever before.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's precisely why there's no simple solution that works universally. It
Yeah.
just doesn't exist. As the author says, nutritional advice that some people love following will be hated by others. Why? Because not everyone has the same physiology, psychology, goals, and preferences. It has to be individual.
That really is the core message, isn't it? Personalization based on understanding. So, thinking about all of this, the science, the psychology, the environment, the need for individual approaches, here's a final thought for you to take away. Given all these individual factors and all these external influences pushing us in certain directions, what's one small conscious change you could make in your daily routine this week? Something that acknowledges these insights rather than just trying to fight against them.